Hello everyone, this is Alistair here, and today's problem of the day is titled Merge K Sorted Linked List. Now, according to the problem, you are given a linked list of an array of linked list of size k, and using these sorted linked list, you have to simply merge them and return them as a single linked list. Now, in order to go over the problem, if you try to merge all the linked list at once, it wouldn't be feasible and proper way to go with the problem. In order to handle this, we'll simply consider the first two linked list, merge them, get the resultant value, and using that resultant, we'll again merge them with the next linked list within our array of linked lists. So let's have a look as to how we'll merge the two linked lists in the first place. So let's take in the example which was given to us, that is, no, let's take in some other example to understand the edge case better, since this is a fairly straightforward uh, linked list to merge. I'll take in 1, 3 and 5, and let the next linked list be 2 and 4. Right. So let's have two variables A and B. Initially A would be pointing here and B would be pointing here. Also to get the resultant linked list, we'll have another variable called res. This initially is pointing to null. Now we'll compare this variable, that is this data, the data present at the first node pointed by A, which is 1, and we'll compare it with this 2. On comparing, we find that A is smaller than 2. So we'll simply point our rest to this value, and we'll move our A over here to the next value within the same linked list. Then we'll again compare A with the value present at B, currently pointed by B. Since A's value is greater than B, we have to store the resultant's next value to be B. For that, I'll simply point the next value of 1 to have the value 2, and I'll erase this one. And after doing this, I'll simply use my B variable and point it to the next variable within B. So it would be here. Now I'll again compare A with B. Since A is 3 and B is 4, and since 3 is smaller than 4, I'll point the next variable of my resultant linked list, which is, let me write it this way, the next variable of my resultant linked list, which is res, which is 2 in this case. I'll point it to 3, which would then erase this, and then we'll point our res to have value 3, and we'll point our A to the next node, which is 5. Then we'll compare A with B again. Since B is smaller than A, we'll simply point the resultants next to have the value 4. And after doing that, we'll be erasing this, and then there are no other nodes after B, right? So we'll be pointing our B to null, and we'll check if our B is null or not, or it could be either one of those cases. If either A could be null or B could be null. Since in our example B is turning out to be null first, we'll simply point our rest to A, which means if there are any other further nodes over here, we'll simply be pointing the resultants next, which was pointing to 4 in this case, to A. And since A was holding 5 and 6, our resultant will have the value 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Now there are two ways to solve this problem. You could either solve this problem iteratively or using a recursive approach. So for the simplicity of code, I'll be choosing the recursive approach. So in order to recursively merge, I'll create another merge function which will take in two nodes, first being A and the next being B. And moving on to our merge klist method function, I'll initialize a head node and let's point it to the first linked list, which is array of 0, and we'll also store a counter variable, and sorry for the background noise, and we'll loop over the array of linked list till we reach k, and we'll simply reuse this head pointer and store in the resultant value. So in our case, we'll be passing our head, which is the 0th linked list, and we'll pass in the next linked list, which is at position I. Right. Now this is done, we'll increment I and we'll return our head, which will be a resultant linked list. Now in order to go about the recursive approach, the first base case that we would have to consider if our A or B turns out to be null. So in this case, since our B was turning out to be null, we simply returned A value. Similarly, if our A turned out to be null, we'll simply return the remaining B nodes. That is the node pointed by B. And if the other case is true, we'll simply return A. Now this is done. We'll create another variable res and we'll initialize it with null value. Now we'll check if A's data is if it is less than or equal to B's data. If that is the case, in our example we were pointing our res to the A value, so we'll do the same over here, and to get the next value of our resultant linked list, we'll simply recursively call this merge function and pass in the next value within the A linked list and pass in the B linked list as it is, since B's value is greater. And within the else block, we'll simply store the result to have the value B, and we'll call res.next to get the next value and pass in A as it is, since A would be greater in this case, and pass in the next value pointed by the B linked list. So in that case, we would be recursively going about the problem, and after reaching the base case and moving back within the stack, we'll simply be converting these res.next to have the resultant nodes, that is the appropriate nodes pointed. So after doing that, we'll simply return res. Now since one thing to note over here is since we are returning res at the last and there are no other further operations ahead, we are performing this recursion as a tail recursion, and because of this our stack value won't be O of n, it would be, or in this case wouldn't be O of k, it would be O of 1, since we are following a tail recursive approach. And because of this method would be much more efficient, and this tail recursive approach I guess is only possible in C++ since the compiler is optimized to do so. Now let's try and run this code. Alright, can't get enough of typos now. Yeah, uh, yeah, we got the right answer. Let's try and submit. Alright, so that was it for today. If you have any doubts, you can ask them in the comment section, and thanks for watching.